Okay, so Llama 3 was released a few days ago. What was the first thing you've built?
First thing I built with Llama was to integrate it with this framework that I created. It's like an agentic framework called Maestro.
Mhm.
And actually, fun fact, Anthropic just emailed me last night, say that I won the act that like basically they had this like competition. It was like a developer
Yeah.
competition. And so like basically Maestro is like this framework that allows you just specify a goal.
Mhm.
And then there's like a more intelligent AI. In the case of Maestro was Opus Cloud 3 that directs basically this like mini agent of like less intelligent AI, IQ, to achieve a goal. And so it's very interesting to see how this system thinks. And so the first thing that built with Llama was like, wouldn't it be cool if I take this framework and I adapt it locally? And so now I basically have like the way I describe it, it's like you feel you have the power of the gods in your hands, right? Because you have
Yeah.
this thing where you say, hey, make me an app about, whatever you want. And it just goes and thinks through all the mini agents and he spits up, a folder with like your files. It's super cool.
The reason you use Haiku, I assume, is for cost reasons, right?
There's actually a bunch of reasons. So one, it's like I really like the style of Ico. Like when
Okay.
those weights sticks and how fast it is generating those answers, right? And so my idea was like, well, this is a model that is on most of the level of GPT-4. I would say almost because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
put it more between 3.5 and 4, which cost 25 cents per million token, which is
Crazy.
crazy how cheap it is, right? And so my idea was like, that model is still good enough to execute the task as long the smartest model is like checking it on basically. And so that's how I solved this issue, because it was like it didn't matter if the task solver wasn't that smart, as long at the very end you have sort of like the big brain going and be like, okay, no, actually this system needs to be fixed, right? And so it's very interesting. But that was the main reason. It was like speed, cost, and I just like the style of IQ a lot.
So basically like a senior developer checking the work of a junior one at
Yes.
the end of the project.
Yes, in fact, it's funny you say that because the original name for it was senior developer, but I was like that. I don't know. It's funny enough, and Maestro just like seems better also because the function I call it orchestrator initially. But yeah, that was the concept. Yeah.
And you also incorporated it with Llama, right? By the way, if you want me to make a personalized AI strategy just for you, then you have last 5 days to join the community, because this is an April only offer. Of course, you get access to all the smartest people at the cutting edge of AI, as well as plenty of AI trainings, courses, workshops, and more, as well as 2 weekly calls when you can talk to me directly and ask any question you want. By the way, the price is going up soon because in May I will be implementing some custom software just for the community members. But yeah, if you want to join, then make sure to join now because the price is going up soon.
Yes, and that's where Llama 3 came in, because I was like, will be very fun to run this locally, and it does work, and it's pretty impressive to see how like the reasoning of Llama 3. It's like really good to see like going task by task.
So would you say Llama 3 70B is on like the same level as GPT-4, or would you say it's still like not quite there?
I would say for things like function calling and JSON mode, probably not yet, but I'm sure they're gonna probably release some sort of fine tune that, or somebody else is gonna do it that like Now's research, or like those guys are awesome, right? They're probably gonna do a fine tune, but I would say like for like every other task, I would say it's pretty close. Like even just like regular coding that doesn't require like a lot of different like formatting. Like I think it's amazing. I tested it. You were able to get functional like code that first try, which had never happened in Llama 2. And yeah, I would say Meta did something really really magical with this one. And to me, like it's less that it's 70 billion, it can compete with GPT-4, but it's more about like we have a local model now that can compete with GPT-4. Like I put
Yeah,
it on
yeah.
my M3 and I just like chat with it. Like that's just crazy if you think about it, right?
I mean, that's exactly why I bought an M3, because I saw like
Yeah,
the potential of open models and I just wanted a machine that can handle it all, right? So like
yeah,
it's crazy because the 8 billion model of Llama 3 is actually
yeah,
competitive with the 70 billion model of Llama 2. Like that's insane.
yes. Yeah, and 3.5, right? Like it actually compares pretty well with, and when you think about it, like I would say, we're so into this world, right? We're so into the AI space, but when you go out and you go out of this, the zoom out, 99% of people that ever
True.
interact with a tool,
Yes.
they're still on the free version of ChatGPT.
That's crazy.
Right? And so it's interesting to think that we are experiencing the power of something that GPT-4 level in our computer when people like the main interaction with AI is still like the free version of ChatGPT, right? And I think about this a lot actually, and like how can I, build a future that I want based on that, basically.
Dude, I think so many people were like get like a bad impression of the AI field just because of this. Like they try the free version of ChatGPT and it's like it's cool and all, but like it's not really that impressive. Like there is so much more. Like come on, man.
Yeah, I mean even the free version of Cloud is better than the free version of
definitely.
Because you get Sonnet. You get Sonnet for free, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like Sonnet is amazing too. I don't use it much because I never liked the middle model.
Yeah,
like when when Llama came and he had like the 7B, the 14B, and like it was like the 31 billion and I was like, why will I use this? It's just a weird case, and I'm glad that they clean up this release and it just did like a smaller model and a bigger model because that's like the two cases that you need. You don't need like something in the middle, right?
Yeah, I also never used Sonnet, even though like it's like really good at basically all the benchmarks and the pricing is super competitive, like much cheaper than Opus. And like it's such a weird spot, right? The middle model. It's like
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
so
but
have you experienced it with like play a lot with like Cloud and Llama?
Actually, one thing that I resonated with is that you mentioned that Haiku is like really creative, and this is perhaps my biggest experience with Claude 3 is that unlike tasks where creativity or like it's obviously not like fully creative but like pseudo creative, on those tasks when it's like brainstorming ideas and stuff like that, I feel like Claude 3 completely destroys GPT-4. I don't know why to explain it. I don't know what the difference is.
I agree with you. I couldn't not. I actually have a really good example of this. So like I have this company, it's called EverArt, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the vision with EverArt is creating, what we call ACI, which is artificial creative intelligence, right? Like how do we bring all the power of creativity into AI tools, basically, right? And so what you saw with Maestro is just a subset of the experiment I'm running, right? And so I built this AI assistant, basically like a Maestro concept, but it looks at images and it gives you basically, like a description of a group of images, and then it provides you like an analysis that you can use. And I cannot explain to you how good is I could combine with Opus. So Cloud 3 in general, a creative task. Like if you take, like if you ask, like if you go right now on ChatGPT and ask GPT for vision, even the last version, hey, here's like 5 images, right? Create, something that's similar, or like a prompt that it's similar. It just goes off the rail. It's just not able. It will give you like, a night in Paris, like all this bullshit. But Cloud 3 is true. It's truly creative. Like it understands, and I wish, like people talk more about this stuff in benchmark because it's always like intelligence and coding and math. But this thing is so creative, and I'm glad you brought it up because I this is a topic that I think about a lot.
So why do you think that is? Like, is the training data different? Is the RLHF different?
I think it's definitely the reinforcement learning is different. I think OpenAI probably, and this is just my, don't take this for granted, it's just the way I think, but I think OpenAI, it's probably lobotomized their model a lot when it comes to creativity, because when we see creativity as human, we attribute a consciousness.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's why like Cloud 3 just feels alive, right? More than GPT. GPT-4 is just like, it's great, but it's just so boring, right? And I think like they did it on purpose so that this is a tool, it's an AI tool, and doesn't scare anybody. But it's also be interesting to see Anthropic, like like I was never an Anthropic fan. Like when Cloud 2 was around, like never use it. I thought it was awful.
Same.
And even the benchmark proves it, right? And they were always the guys that were saying like, oh, AI is scary, we're doing all those things, and then with Cloud 3, they just went the opposite direction. They were showing us that the model was creative during training, and there was aware that, you remember that post that the prompt engineer did that was like, oh, when we were training, he knew we were training.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, what? Like, how did you guys, go so 180? And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're trying to make this model feel more alive. And if it feels more alive, it's also more creative, I think.
Okay, but obviously it's not self-aware, like, you know, it's still LLM. But I think a lot of people, like especially beginners, like get this impression of like, you know, it's more conscious, and then it's like creates that sort of a, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like a hype, right? Where people are like, oh my God, we're so close to creating consciousness, while like it's just a better tuned LLM, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny to say that. I mean, if you listen to any interview of like Claudio Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, like every time he speaks, we makes you believe he has AGI
Yeah.
achieved, right? Like he just did this interview. I forgot. It was like some forum. It was like yesterday or 2 days ago, and he's talking about synthetic data. And basically, what he's saying is like we can apply the same concept of like AlphaGo to synthetic data to create this like endlessly simulator of really good data, because the model all he needs is just good data, just gotta create it, right? And so, and I'm like, okay, you know, like what else do you guys have in this house? So it's like it's very interesting how you know, like the perception, and I agree with you. Like I think it's a tool that they use as a marketing tool, right? Because it gets people to talk more, and we are talking about it, right? So and when Cloud 3 dropped, all you heard was about like how real it felt and how conscious he was. It was less about how good it was and like all this kind of stuff. So
I mean, to give a bit credit to Google, I would say Gemini is also pretty creative, definitely more than GPT-4. So like, I don't know, OpenAI really like did something there where it just like made it super. Because like when I tried to get like title variations for YouTube videos, I go to Claude 3 and Gemini. I never go to GPT-4, never.
And so I did some I helped this company out for a while for like consultancy, and they had this problem with YouTube videos, titles in particular. And the GPT-4, no matter what you say, no matter what you like, the way you do the prompt, no matter the function calling that you use, it will always use semicolon in the title.
Oh yes, yes.
It will always put like a
Claude
a
3
pre-title,
semicolon,
like,
yeah, best
yeah, it's like
GPT,
things to do
best LLM.
semicolons. Yeah, it's like things to do columns. Here's 10, and it's just so annoying. And instead, like Cloud 3 and even Llama 3, actually, you should try. I try Llama 3 with YouTube videos. It's incredible because Llama 3, I think actually one thing that people haven't spoke about that it does really well is retrieval on text that you provide. So like if you give Llama 3 like 10 YouTube titles and you just ask like autocomplete, it does a really good job. And Cloud 3 does a really good job too. But GPT-4, it was just, you know, put the columns and like I hit it. Like it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, I think like 5 months ago I spent quite a bit of time just creating like a set of titles and then using like vector embeddings to feed it into GPT-4, and I never got it to really work. So I was like, you know, is it just me? Like, is it a skill issue? But now like we see like Claude 3, it's like maybe it was a model issue.
Yeah, it's definitely a motivation. You know why? Because like another really fun experiment I did when Cloud 3 dropped was basically I took all my tweets. So I made this like script on JavaScript that you collect all the tweets I ever done, which is like around 800. So it's not a lot of them, but it's enough to fine tune a model basically. And I was like, and I have a lot of experience like fine tuning LLMs, and I was like, I want to see how good of a one-shot fine-tuning Cloud can be. And so I gave it the data structures in a JSON file, and it was like, you know, this is Pietro tweet, and this is the tweet, right? Assistant, this is a tweet. Answer, this is the actual tweet. And I was like, okay, and basically I say to Cloud, I want you to fine-tune yourself on this data, and you know, you have to create tweets in this style. And I cannot explain to you. My mind was blown. I say, okay, make a tweet in the style of Pietro, and it would just speaks like me. I will send you the tweet after. It's like it literally speaks like me. It uses the same way that I speak. It tagged EverArt in some tweet. It tagged Reply because I use Reply a lot to like, you know, share some of my open source programs and stuff. And I was just mind blown. And it got me thinking like, wow, like if a model is good enough, like retrieval or just like, you know, how the completion, you basically get one shot fine tuning. And I think like that's gonna be like, you know, the road that we're gonna go, and the model is just gonna be better at that.
So speaking about fine tuning, when do you think people or companies should fine tune instead of just, you know, providing external knowledge?
That's a great. Well, so there's two cases in my opinion. It's like one where your data is just not available, right? And that's the sort of like the core of the issue that we're trying to solve at EverArt, right? EverArt is fine-tuning for images, but you can apply the concept on anything, right? Like brands and corporations, like artists come to our platform because their data is not part of foundational model, but they have a very specific style, they have a very specific brand, they have, I don't know, they have like a can that looks in a certain way, and they can train a model on their data, change enough of the model when it's copyright free, basically, and then use to generate like assets. So that's like a case, right? The other case is more personal. I feel like personal to actual life. Like I can see a case where we're gonna have a little device that knows a lot about us, and it's gonna be like fine tune on your own preference, like the way you speak and like the things that you do, and it's gonna like help you out during the day. And then there is also cases where like even if the model knows a lot about a certain topic, like this is more applying on an LLM, fine tuning on something might be very like it might be very, very good for your company. For example, I can think about like if you are a company that, I don't know, making this up, let's say you sell snacks, right? And you want your customer support to feel like in the tone and sort of like in the way you speak and the way you approach your customer, then that's a perfect case when you should fine tune LLM on your tone and your style. So then that LLM basically becomes an extension of yourself, an extension of your brand, right? And so I think it varies. It's like when you don't have enough data, when your data is not present, or when you just want to like augment your experience, basically.
Do you think that in the future, when AI is advanced enough, fine-tuning will be like the way to ensure that the AI is aligned with your personal interest instead of the company who trained it?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, and of course, like a lot of that future depends, how willing to fine tune the company is. We're seeing like OpenAI for the longest time they will only get to fine tune 3.5, and if you fine tune 4, it's millions of dollars, right? But and so I believe that's the future. I really believe fine tuning, and it wouldn't be, I would say, the fine tune that we have today, where it's like it takes like 6 hours to create like I mean, for a small fine tune like 6 hours, but I think like a day if you want to get like a really good fine tune, it would be something that closer to what we were talking about, where the models are so smart they can basically rearrange their weights in real time to custom your needs. And I really believe that's going to be the future of AI, more personalized AI.
And how far away do you think we are?
I would say like from a future where everybody has something in their house that knows them, probably a little more, like probably like a little more than 5 years, I would say. But to a point where fine tuning are good enough to do that, like on models are good enough to like instant fine tuning, I would say like, yeah, probably like 3 to 5 years. I think we're because even I see like I basically like so we have this like stats in my app where we can see how many model you fine tune, right? So I fine tuned since October last year. I fine tuned 1,250 models on just image models. Right? So I feel like now I really got a sense of like the tech and like where the tech is going, and I'm always sort of like trying to be on the edge of it. And it's just getting better and better. And I think like, yeah, we're gonna get to a point where this thing is just gonna be easier. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned 5 years for that, so you aren't in the AGI in 6 months category. Sounds like.
No, I don't think so. And I'm not, and I'm actually a very optimistic person. But you know why I don't think it's in the 6 months? It's less about what we're capable of. It's just more
Slowness.
about corporation.
Exactly.
Yeah, like about corporation not wanting to push it because like if this Q star thing is real from OpenAI, we'll probably accelerate the timeline a lot, and they're just like maybe they're just like a little worried. But I'm definitely like optimistic when it comes to AGI.
So if you had to say, like, is it 5, 10 years, 15 years?
I would say it's definitely in the 5 years range. Yeah, I wouldn't put it. I would be very surprised if it's more than 5 years. Consider like how fast this thing is moving. Like going back to the Llama example, right? We have a model that it's like like so much smaller that performs at the highest level model of like just a year ago, right? And so like you can imagine how even like Microsoft just released like a very small model that does really well too. It's just like the Phi 3, like a 3 billion parameter model that does as well as the Llama 8 billion. So it's like it's I think we're just going so fast, but it will really depends on how willing those companies are to release this tech. And honestly, like that's kind of like the annoying thing for me too, where it's like, I think this is the very first time. Okay, I mean, let me rephrase this way. Excluding military tech, right? Because military tech has always been like advanced and it's always been like years ahead, and there's reason why you can access military tech, right?
Yeah.
This is the first time in technology, I feel like, where we could potentially be so ahead of our time, but we're really bottleneck by regulation and fear, and you know, some of those things are justified, I think. But it's interesting to live in this timeline, basically.
And why do you think that is? Because, you know, OpenAI, for example, was founded to prevent this, to make sure that everything is accessible to everyone.
Yeah, and also I think OpenAI is an interesting case because they're the first one that, you know, became famous for it, right? And I feel like even what we were saying before, you know, why OpenAI lobotomized their model so much. I think there is a pressure in being the first one, and you know, you're trying to do the things right, and even at the cost of, you know, degrading the quality. Where if you are, you know, a newcomer, I wouldn't call Anthropic a newcomer. Those guys have been doing, you know, like that for 20 years. More so as like, if you want to be the new OpenAI, you got to be aggressive. You have to have a model that feels like real. You have to, you know, but I think, you know, OpenAI was always created with the idea of creating, you know, safe AGI, and so I respect them for, like, you know, keep that mindset and not going like, oh, we're gonna release, you know, GPT-5 today, and like, you know, we're gonna we're gonna change the world and all this stuff. So yeah.
But like, wouldn't the middle ground be for them to open source GPT-3? I mean, it's like the last thing they open source is GPT-2, no?
Yeah, but I think like they will probably, like especially now that Ondrej Karpathy is gone, I would never think that they will gonna open source any of their model. Because I think rightfully so, they believe their model are very powerful, right? Like when you think about, like, there are people that still miss Da Vinci 2. Because it was like so good at like creativity and how to completion and, like, you know, embedding and like all this kind of stuff. And so like I think there's so much power untapped in this older model that we haven't really experienced because they were never given, you know, as open source model. And I feel like, you know, there's just like a fear that somebody could do something wrong with it, and you know, I think that's justified. And I would be very surprised if they release anything open source.
Yeah, I mean, there is always this argument that the people who really want to commit something terrible can just use Google and find it, right? So
which I agree, but at the same time, it's like if I put myself in their shoes, right, and it's like, do I want my name to be associated with that? You know, if Llama 3, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, right? But if Llama 3 tomorrow gets fine-tuned to create malware and, you know, like an agentic behavior to get into somebody's computer, I mean, you could do that today. You could fine-tune Llama 3 to do that, right? And like, do I want that, like, image on me, right? Probably not if I'm OpenAI. But I think it's just about like the level of risk that you want to take as a company.
Yeah, I think you brought a great point where always it takes almost a new company to like break through the next paradigm, because Google, like in theory, Google should have not allowed OpenAI to even exist because they made the transformer and they could have released something as powerful as GPT 3.5 probably in like 2018. So like, you know, but they had so much reputation, as you said, like it's always the cost of being like something bad happening and having your entire brand associated with it. So yeah, I mean, it almost takes like a new company, a new startup to experiment with the new stuff.
I agree. And it's funny because, you know, I worked at Facebook for like around 3 years. So I have experience, you know, the big corporate tech America, in like everything that happened to Google makes sense to me. Because you know, when you have a company that runs on OKRs and timeline and goals and your team goal and like your performance review, and like it becomes, you know, it's less about the greater good. It's less about, you know, what are we actually putting out. It's more about like, how can I, you know, get a bonus? How can I get, you know, and you know, you don't get a bonus for changing the world. Sometimes you get a bonus if you just, like, you know, shut up and do what your manager wants, which is very sad. And I think, that's what happened to Google. They had this incredible technology, as you say, like since like 2017. I think that's what the Attention All You Need
Yeah.
came out, but they never did anything with it. But I'm seeing like a little wave change now. I think now they're waking up a little bit, and like I'm seeing like a lot of new research from Google that's very interesting. And I think, maybe now they learned their lesson, and like they're not gonna like, let those brilliant mind go and build like 10 different companies. And but as you were saying before too, I feel like Gemini, especially 1.5 Pro, it's really good, especially when it comes to like long contents. I think they're slowly catching up. They're definitely not at the level of Cloud or even Mistral, which is crazy. Like, you think about
Yeah.
a French company like destroying them. But yeah.
I mean, Google, I think, has the potential to be the best if they just decided to. Like, they probably have the most data out of anybody, and like, they could build with that the best models, and they've tons of compute, obviously their own TPUs. So it just takes somebody to kind of shake things up. Maybe a new CEO, I don't know, but yeah, I think Google like has major potential, and people should not count
Yeah,
them out.
Google, and actually, I think like the true sleeper giant, it's Apple,
Oh yeah,
because they're the guys that, you know, like thinking about iOS, like how long did it took to have folders in iOS? Like, I mean, like 5, 6 years, just to have the ability to put your folder. Like, they're the people that are like, they will take their sweet time, but when they come out, and actually thinking about data, I think they're gonna win this. Like imagine all the iMessage data, like all the in-device
but will
data,
they
like
use
they're.
that? It's like Apple is known for like privacy.
Well, so I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, okay, all the data is encrypted end to end, right? But they do have the way to encrypt the keys.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like I feel like if they want to do it, they could do it,
Oh yeah,
right?
definitely. I mean,
And
if the CIA put pressure on them, they would get some data. So yeah.
exactly. So, and I mean, I don't know. Maybe they found a way where, in pure Apple style, they'd be like, we're changing this model, but we don't see it. It's it's the model that sees it. It's like, nobody's seen this data. It's just, it goes into the model at 0 1s. But the model is seeing it. I don't know, but I also believe like they've been doing so many investment in the past 10 years. They bought all this AI company. They, of course, they make their own GPU and CPU now. Like, they all combine in the ML chip, which it's amazing, by the way. I use it, fine tune models and stuff like that. And so I think like they're just, from an hardware perspective and user base perspective, they're the one. They're like, if they launch something that it's like a local LLM or a Siri powered by some sort of LLMs, I think they're gonna be like in a really good spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think you brought up the investments, right? I think they actually acquired the most AI startups out of anybody.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I remember reading this chart that was like all the company they bought in the past 5 years. It's crazy. So I definitely think they're in a sweet spot, and Google too. Yeah, but then also, now, Meta has all the GPUs now, so it's like it's a
Yeah,
very interesting landscape. Like, I think they have 35,000 like
350,
H100
I
or something.
think.
Oh, 350.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah, it's wild. Yeah.
And it's actually funny because they only use 10% to train the model and 90% to run it. So it's like,
And I think the rest is for like Reels too, like to run Reels and like all this
yeah.
stuff there. Only
I mean, that was the original, right? Zach didn't even like predict the AI. He just wanted basically better recommendation algorithms and just happened to like align with the wave.
so funny. Yeah, he's always, the one thing about Mark Zuckerberg is like, people dubbed him a lot, but like at the end of the day, the dude has been having one mission since he was like 15 years old. Like, if you have, there's like this website that you can still look it up. The first website Mark Zuckerberg ever created, and it's on the Web Time Machine. And there's a page called the Web, and he's talking about how the web is going to be more connected. Like, this dude has been thinking about the same thing since he was like 15. So like, I love to bet on people that I always have a firm belief or something. Like, even when I look back on my life, right? And because it's harder when you see yourself, like I watch a bunch of your video. It's actually funny because after you chat with me, I was like, wait a second. Like, I watch a lot of assistant video. I watch like some of your more technical videos. I was like, and I've been following and loving your content for a while. And I was like, when I look at somebody like you, I'm like, this is a guy that is just like passionate about this and has been enamored this for a long time. And the only path to that is success, right? And so, but when you look at yourself, it's like really hard to tell that. And I was thinking about this, and now I run this like AI art brand design company, if you want to call it. And I was talking to my mom, and we were like talking about some stuff, and she brought up those drawings that I used to do since I was like 5 years old, and I was like, you know what? It's just so interesting. Like whatever this thing is, it's been with me for so long that there is no other way for me to not do this. And I always bet on those kinds of people. And I think like Mark Zuckerberg is just like one of those. You can't just bet against it.
But so many people do. It's crazy because like when the rebranding to Meta happened, and then that stock dipped massively, like so many people were counting him. I was like, oh my god, it's over, and like he pulled out the craziest comeback ever.
Yeah, and that's why he's been changing his brands a lot, right? Like now he's like all the memes. It's like he's attractive now. He has swag, right? And I think like that, like that helps. Like when people see you at this like scary alien, like they used to see him before. Of course, you're gonna get that sort of critique. Like, but now he's like he's cool Zach now, right? It's just very funny how people think. Yeah,
you're doing like MMA and stuff, and like.
He's doing side quests. He like smoked meats. He has like Kobe beef in Hawaii. Like it's so funny. Yeah.
But like what he did really well is that he retained enough control of the company where he actually can make decision, right? Because so many of these companies where they get to a sufficient size, it's just all dripples down to the management, and the CEO has less and less control. That way, when like there is something big that needs to happen, some big shift, like rebranding to Meta, like so many companies just wouldn't be able to do that purely from the bureaucratic friction.
Oh, for sure. And like another thing too about him, it's like, once again, I worked there and I used to do like what was called the Zach review, which is like you go and you show the product that you're working on. This guy knew everything about Facebook. What I'm talking about, he will know this button that I never even see it because it wasn't my team. I'm not joking. Like he will be like, hey, there's like a button in this 20 pages down on this page that I don't like. He's true. Like the thing about him is Meta. He's Facebook, and I think like only if you have that level of control and this sort of like understanding of your product, then you can make this sort of decision. And it's just very interesting.
Yeah, I've seen this tweet. I don't know who posted it, but it was basically like Mark Zuckerberg is doing what Sam Altman was supposed to do, but like everybody's hating on Zuck because of his reputation is kind of negative, and everybody's praising Sam as this visionary, right?
Yeah, and I know, and I mean the interesting thing about Sam Altman too, it's like it was just like an interview that just got released. It's him and the COO.
Yeah.
And he's talking about like he was still a Y Combinator, wasn't even interested in OpenAI, and like only when things started to pick up, it's like, wait, what is this? This is a good shiny thing, and I think that's his talent. Is like I think Sam Altman talent, besides being a really good politician, I think, is that he has that like the vision around like, okay, what actually is going to work, and I think like that's also a superpower, to be able to do that, and but I also think people just love OpenAI brand, but my theory is that we're soon going to see a shift, and I already kind of start seeing it. Like I remember like there was a time where everybody was praising OpenAI and they couldn't do nothing wrong. They were like gods among us. And if you look at the sentiment right now, it's a little change. It's a little like, oh, okay, guys, you lobotomize this model. You're not releasing better model. You're doing these things, and I think that's just like just a natural cycle of big companies. And I saw that at Facebook too. When during the election, like I went from a time where everybody loved Facebook, and it was like a proudful thing to say that you worked at Facebook. And then like, oh my God, don't say you work at Facebook because you ruined the world, right? And so it's and I think the time is gonna change, and also Sam is gonna get some shift for something, and it's just the natural cycle of things.
I mean, Sam Altman is like exceptionally good at making products, right? Because like it was his idea to do ChatGPT, because like everybody just wanted to do research and stuff, and he was like, no guys, trust me, like let's put this into a UI, it will work. And like basically all of the other leaderships like Greg Brockman, Ilya wanted to work on better models, and he was like, let's just try this, right? And he was right.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes you need, I mean, not sometimes, most of the time you need the product person. And honestly, for me, like the shocking thing about ChatGPT, and I think people don't talk a lot about this, is for the first time, you had a product that reached, I think, like the fastest to reach 100 million user, I think, ever.
I think
That,
all of the benchmarks, all of the milestones.
yeah, that didn't even have a landing page. Like think about it. Like I come from a tech background. I've been working in tech for 12 years. I was lead at Uber. I was head of AI of Brex, and like I come from the school of thoughts that there's certain things that you have to do, right? Landing page is one of the things you have to do if you want to have a successful product. And here we have a product that you just log in and is a chat that takes the world by storm. And that was a really good lesson to me personally, because it made me sort of like going back and thinking about like what's truly meaningful and what is not. And I'm really glad that it did that. And yeah, I mean that changed my life. And I think like I always look back at my life before ChatGPT and after, because like I've been working on AI like for like 2 years. So like since like the GPT-3 API were available, I went down like the rabbit hole. I think like everybody else in the space, like trying to like re-understanding. I taught myself transform it. I taught myself like how to create a GPT from scratch, like all those things that I think are important to like understanding what's going on in the back. But it wasn't until ChatGPT that it was this truly transformative moment where I was like, holy shit, like the world is never going to be the same. And you know what's funny, the last time I felt that was when I was in college and somebody handed me an iPhone 3GS for the first time. And I remember holding it and I was like, what is this? And I was a nuclear engineer, by the way. So I studied nuclear engineering school. And I was like, I'm gonna drop nuclear engineering. So I mean I graduated, but I was like, I'm gonna drop what I'm doing and spend my entire life devoting on building stuff of this thing. And basically that's how I ended up in tech. It was just truly like just the shock of seeing an iPhone for the first time. And that's the same shock I felt with ChatGPT, to the point at the time I was at Brex. And I was like, would it be funny if I make a financial system that knows like your data, but it behaves like a ChatGPT? But of course, I built it with the GPT-3 API because we didn't have ChatGPT API at the time. But I made it so it was like a chat functionality, and my team was so excited about it. They were like, "Stop whatever you're doing. Now you're like you lead the AI effort here." And that's only how it started. It's like it's because I opened ChatGPT for the first time the day it came out, and it changed my life, and I think it changed the life of a lot of people.
I mean, I would say it changed my life. Not necessarily like the AI tool, but like, as you said, the waking up, like the AI revolution is real. Like you have to do something in this field. And like, yeah, it took me a few months to completely transition, but like, yeah, I would say it did change my life as well.
Do you remember what was the first thing you asked?
I don't know.
I actually remember because I was like, okay, give me a script in the style of the start of the Goodfellas, which is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
But about these three friends. And so I described me and my two best friends, which is actually now my two co-founder of my company. And he gave me this amazing script that started just like, I don't know if you ever watched the movie Goodfellas.
Yeah, I did.
And it started like that. And it's like, there's like, it's like, it was just me and my friend, and we were trying to make it big. And it was like, whoa. Like, and that's truly the first thing I asked ChatGPT, which is funny. And then and then I just went into this rabbit hole of like really understand how to talk to these tools, and like, how do we make it more personalized? And honestly, like that light is what brought me to today, building EverArt, building all those like agent system. I like this ChatGPT plugin that I built. It's called Designer GPT, that it's like one of the top GPT in the world. I think now it's like more than 400,000 chats. And but it all started with this deep desire of taking those tools, understand what they do, and give it back to people, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely resonate with that. I don't remember the first prompt, but for me, it's like, it was more about just wanting to be part of the AI revolution, right? Because I was too young to be in the internet revolution, the dot-com bubble, too young to be in the social media wave, but like, I was exactly the perfect age to be part of this wave. So like, for me, it's like, I almost had to do it. It wasn't even like a choice, right? It's like, even though like even though by switching I like completely destroyed my income because I had a different channel that was doing really well, I was like, it doesn't even matter. It's like 5 years, 10 years from now, it's just like being in the AI field. I just knew it was the right choice.
I agree, and I think your channel is doing great too now. So I think it was definitely the right choice, and at the same time, I think what you say resonates a lot to me, right? Because you're like, hey, like I am at this stage of my life, and if I do this thing now, like I can ride the wave as long as I can, and like imagine 6 months from now, a year from now, when a better model comes out, like how much better set up you are than somebody that's never even interacted with this thing, right? And to me, like it really goes back to like I would say those like epiphany moments that I had that they really define why I use those tools in my experience. Like I remember, so this is actually a really fun story. Before ChatGPT did the plugin, sorry, the custom GPT, they have this thing called plugins, which is they miss now.
Almost that.
And yeah, it's basically that. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is fun. I want to start experimenting. And so this is like, we're still at 3.5. 4 wasn't even out yet, if I remember correctly. And basically, I made this ChatGPT plugin, the Use Stability AI API, and it creates images, right? And so you will talk to this interface, and it will give you images. This is before DALL-E was in the chat.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Like, I was like, wait a second, right? It's understanding what I want. And then I can never forget these two moments. I say, okay, generate a picture of a pirate, right? So he makes the pirate picture using Stability AI. It's a really cool portrait of a pirate. And then I say, okay, let me talk to this pirate. No, I didn't say pirate. I say, let me talk to him. And now all of a sudden, he started talking with a pirate slang because, he understood that this was an image of a pirate. Therefore, like, I didn't even have to ask, let him give it a pirate accent. He just got it, right? And I was like, holy shit. This is unreal. And then the second like mind-blowing moment was before I did the designer GPT, custom GPT, I made it as a plugin. And by accident, I had both because at the time you can actually toggle multiple plugins at the same time. I think it was like up to 3 or 4, if I remember correctly. And so I forgot to switch the image plugin, and I tag in the designer GPT plugin. And so I was like, okay, give me a website about a design firm. He makes up the website. I click the website, and there are images generated with the image plugin that I didn't even ask, but he intelligently understood
That's crazy.
that he could have done it. And actually, I'm actually upset that they dismissed the plugin because I actually think we're way more powerful than Custom GPT. Custom GPT cannot do that. You have to like automatically you have to tag the GPT that you want to use with another one. But like it was like the plugins I think was so smart. And they definitely did something there where they're like, okay, maybe this is a little too smart. Like, how can it go by itself? But that was truly like a mind-blowing moment for me. And I was like, wow, I'm gonna spend my entire life on these tools now.
I think like the difference between people who don't care about AI and it's like, oh my god, it's just whatever, it's not that good yet, and the people who are like, no, this is amazing. Is the only difference. I mean, the main difference I would say is that the people who don't care about it look at the current version and all the flaws. The people who are all in look at 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and see like where it's going, not even caring about the current version really. I mean, obviously there is so much you can do today, but like 6 months from now, 12 months from now, nobody knows where it will be. So I think that's like probably the biggest difference. And as you mentioned, like ChatGPT didn't have any landing pages, any marketing or anything like that. So like I think great product is all you need. Like at the end of the day, if you have something truly amazing, you just need one user tells another one, and it scales, right? So I think that was like the real secret that Sam understood. And with the plugins, I think like I agree with you that in order to be really useful, it has to be like automatic. It cannot be the user doing everything, right? It has to be like you say a request, and then the AI understands, okay, there's actually this plugin or this GPT that would be perfect for this. And like it has the database of millions of GPTs. It like the user, you can expect the user to know everything, right? And to ask for everything.
Exactly. It should be intelligently like picking up the stuff. And I think you say something very important there, which is like, there's some people that focus on the flaw and people that think in the future. As a founder myself now of an AI company, actually, I think like the most important thing you can do right now as somebody is building a product, it's building I like to say build for super intelligence. So every feature we're building on EverArt right now is with GPT-6 in mind. It's not with GPT-5, right? Like I'm like, okay, if I have the like a true like 2x Einstein on my disposal, what are the things that I will do? How will I change this product? How will I build this product? And all our roadmaps, it's but going back to this idea of ACI, like artificial creative intelligence, it's all built with that. And so I think like that's what people should do. It's like because this is truly the first time where like your features are not limited by tech, but they're limited by intelligence. I mean, think about this for a second, right? It's like me going back 10 years, like, and you have a company, represent you have a company, right? And I say, and I talk to you, you tell me, hey, it's like, hey, like, what do you think it's like the biggest bottleneck for you? And you probably would say, like, you know what, like, it's my employee. Like, I need, 10 more employees, or like this guy, this engineer is not as good as I hoped. And I come back in time and I say, in 10 years from now, that's not going to be a bottleneck for you anymore. And you have to build your features thinking that you have the smartest employee in the world. And there's this one thing that Sam Altman said that really resonated with me. In this interview, he said, there's going to be a person, there's going to be a billionaire by running a company by himself.
Yeah.
And
Crazy.
I could not agree more with that. And I think we're going to approach in that uncanny valley where this is going to happen soon. And even looking at myself, not a billionaire, but like I built like probably like 25 apps in the past like 9 months, and I did it at this superhuman speed because I use a lot of this AI tool to help myself coding and set up the system. And I mean, even Design GPT was done by GPT-4. I just told him what I wanted, and he spit out for me. And even the system level thinking he did that. And so like I think we are you should always build your life towards this concept of like super intelligence, basically.
Yes, it's basically thinking as long term as possible, right? So like this is this concept in business and in life. Like whoever thinks more long term usually wins. Like it's more important than work ethic or whatever. It's just like if somebody thinks like, okay, ChatGPT today or GPTs whatever, like this month, next month, whoever thinks about like 5 years, 10 years is going to destroy that person, even if he doesn't work as hard or like isn't as capable. It's because just like it focusing on the short term is like the reason why the poorest people live paycheck to paycheck is that they cannot save up and see like saving this 10% will lead to a better life in a few years, right? So like thinking more long term is almost always better, but like most people struggle with it.
I agree. That's that's definitely the most important thing. Yeah.
I mean, for me, I would say like that similar moment was when I had ChatGPT actually write a Chrome extension for me. And back then I didn't know anything about JavaScript or like completely clueless about that. So I was just like, okay, can it do this? And I described it. I had some problem like logging into Frame.io where every time I just to type in my email, and it was like so annoying because I couldn't like it was taking like 10 seconds, but like I had to do it every day. So it's over time it just adds up, right? I was like, oh my gosh, it's so annoying. Can I create a Chrome extension with that, with ChatGPT? And like in like 5 minutes I had it working. I was like, dude, this is crazy. Like
yeah, that's insane. Yeah, like when you do your first working end-to-end thing with like any AI tool, it's such a weird and that's also why I love Maestro, because it's like it spits up a folder with like the files and like the whole system in it, and it's just magical. Like it's wild. What is so I suppose like you still use it a lot for coding. Would that be your main user case for interfacing with these tools?
for ChatGPT?
Yeah, or like in general, we use AI for it. It's like
probably
mostly
just
coding.
like probably just like assisting in like writing and like summarizations, like going through I had this contract with a marketing agency. It wasn't really long. It was like still 10 pages, but like the contracts, how they're written, it's like sentences with like 8 commas in them. It's like, oh my god, what is this saying? And I just put it there and it's like explains in simple terms and stuff like that. I mean, just daily use cases, I would say. For coding, it's more like the Copilot extension inside of VS Code. So I mean, that's probably the biggest help for coding. Okay, I want to actually touch on this concept, like you said, with building with super intelligence in mind. And this reminded me of the concept idea from Balaji Srinivasan, where the smart get smarter, right? So everybody knows like the rich get richer, where like people who are rich have extra money to invest, and that makes them richer. The smart get smarter is basically a new concept with AI, where people who are learning about it, who are at the cutting edge, who are trying to be as smart as possible, they are going to be so far ahead of the average person who's like, yeah, AI, I've heard it's going to change the world, but whatever, it's not that good. I've tried ChatGPT free version. So like, I think, what are your thoughts about it? Do you agree with the smart get smarter concept? And like, how can the average person like do something basically?
I agree, and I'm gonna give you an example from sci-fi. Okay, so have you ever watched the movie Arrival? It's a beautiful movie.
I don't think so.
It's based on this story. There's this writer called Ted Chiang, and he wrote this book called Story of Your Life and other stories, if I remember the thing correctly. But that's what the movie Arrival is
I
based
think
on.
I've seen this. Yeah.
Yeah, and so without spoiling this movie, basically in the movie they hired the most the most expert linguistic person in the world to understand the alien language, right? And basically, just by communicating with those aliens, she kind of gained superpower. That's sort of like the plot. And there is this concept in neuropsychology where if you can speak different languages, actually your brain thinks differently in different languages. So I'm Italian, right? I speak, that's my mother tongue. And then of course, I think I'm proficient in English. And I am two different people when I'm speaking Italian, when I speak in English.
Same.
It's very interesting, right? I'm sure like you probably different too when you and I was like, I was thinking about this, and I was like, now I'm basically speaking a lot to this quote unquote alien language. I call it alien not because it's extraterrestrial, but more so like it's something that wasn't existing on the planet. We made it, right? It's something that wasn't supposed to be here. We created it. And I already start seeing how like my thought process has changed a lot in like, the 2 years or more that I've been interacting with these tools. Like I'll give you an example. Like in the past, if I was to solve a problem, I will go very like A to B, right? And I will think about, how do I reach B faster? And now because I don't see like a goal as a one-liner, I see it more as like an exploration of different possibility. I go from like A to A1 to A1B to A1C to until I get to my goal. And it's truly changed my thought process, because when you have basically something where you can brainstorm, you can simulate scenario. Like I simulate scenario for my company. I go here and I'm like, hey, this is exactly what my company does. Simulate scenario are this amount of user, and it's just like it's incredible, right? So I think it's like am I getting smarter? Is my IQ getting higher? Probably not. I don't know, but I'm definitely getting like something that I couldn't never get before, which is like this ability of approaching problem in a different way and solving them in a different way. And I think like that's what's gonna make people different. And I see it all the time. Like my friends, in my group of friends, I'm like, they call me the AI guy, right? It's funny, but I just like love this stuff, right? And like I'm always the guy they ask, like, hey Pietro, like I have to do this thing, like, how can I do it? And then here I am, just read a prompt, and it's like, a 20-line prompts, whatever, and it works. And they get shocked, but that's because I think like I've been talking so much with these machines that now my brain is tuned to speak like them. And if you can speak this new language, then you get better too. And so I truly believe in that. Yeah.
I have so many things written down. So, okay, the last thing you said, if you can speak this, you get better. I mean, I absolutely agree. But like, why is there so many people that's like, oh, why would you learn how to prompt? What's the point of this when AGI is coming soon? Like, there is so much pessimism like around learning new skills, and like, I just don't understand it, because my simple framework is like, you're never gonna, get worse by knowing more skills. Like,
yeah, no, I agree. I think okay. I think there's two things. There's like one, learning a new skill is just hard, right?
Yeah,
Like I think like you have to be a very specific type of person to be like, I want to learn something new. That's just, so you're already dealing with like a small percentage. From a pure like prompt engineering perspective, I still believe prompts, it's like a byproduct of us using these tools for the first time. Like an example that I love to use a lot, it's like when the first iPhone came, all the interface looked like real elements, right? You have like something that looks like wood. It was a schemorphic UI, right? It looks like wood and paper. And that's because like we never interact with something that was touch until that point. And so we needed some ideas that we are familiar with, like books of pages of a book and like stuff like that to understand how to use it. And in my perspective, prompt is like that. It's like this is not maybe the best way to interact with these tools, but we are limited right now because that's how our technology is shaped us. And so, but at the same time, I don't think it's a bad skill to learn because at the end of the day, it will always be, even if you have AGI, you still have to be able to ask AGI what you want. Like I feel like, you know, how many stories and legends and like fairy tales you have of people asking a genie for a desire, for a wish, but then they formulate the wish in a wrong way, and the genie end up like killing some people in their family, or you know,
Yeah.
turning their house on fire, right? And like I see that like that. It's like even if you have a genie that can do whatever you desire, you still have to be able to ask your wish in the right way
And understand how it
and so
works.
yeah, it generally works. And so I think like prompt engineer is it's a great skill to learn. And it's like when Ondrej Karparty tweeted, it was like English is the hottest like, you know, developing language.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. I think that's true.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely agree. I think it's just like, probably you're right. It's learning new skills, and somebody's like, rather than go through that pain or discomfort of learning your skill and like sucking at it at first, people are just like, yeah, why learn that? AGI is coming soon. It's like, it's useless.
Yeah.
It's like so many things. It's like, I don't know. There's so much, I don't know. This is almost like syndrome where people just like, they see something, they understand the potential of it, but like they make a like small decision that they're not going to pursue it. So the only alternative is to hate on it, right?
Yeah, I agree, and I think, you know, that's what difference like a successful person from you always have to be open minded and, you know, understand like what the world around you is changing and make the best out of it.
When you said that you're two different people based on English or Italian, like I absolutely agree. When I have this AI community, and every now and then somebody joins who's from Czech Republic, and they want to talk to me in Czech, and my brain is almost incompetent talking about AI in Czech. I like, can we just talk in English, please? Like,
Dude, it's so funny you say that because like so because, you know, working at high here in Italy, I'm like an expert because, you know, they're so behind me, unfortunately. And but which is sad because there's some of the best researchers actually, especially in the image generation world, in Italy. But like I've been interviewed for Italian TV like a few times at this point, and I hated it because I just want to talk in English. Also, like if you say things like prompt engineering or you know,
you cannot translate
learning,
it.
It just sounds so weird in Italian. Oh, linguaggio di macchina. It sounds like something that like from the 18th century when people were trying to describe like a steam engine, right? And so it's it's funny. But at the same time, I'm also more competent in English. Like I feel like I don't speak Italian like at all now. Only when I talk to my family. And when I speak Italian, I feel like a kid. I feel like, oh, do you say this correctly? It's so funny. And I left my country when I was 18. But yeah, it's funny. Yeah.
I mean, I felt the same way when last year I spent like 5 weeks in Paris, and when I came back, my Czech was like bad. I was like, oh my God, like you really can like lose skill of language when you don't practice it.
Yeah.
Okay, so another thing that I wanted to say is like fundamental AI beliefs, right? So I feel like the main belief I always tell people is that all you have to understand is that technology always keeps improving. Like we cannot predict how fast things will happen or whatever, but like the only thing you just like look at is that, is this gonna get worse? No. Is this gonna stop? Well, probably not. Like just, you know, all the exponentials going in, more people going in, computers are improving, so many things are improving. So when you understand this one belief that technology always keeps improving, the next thing you have to do is just like, okay, are you going to fight it? Are you going to be one of those like anti-AI people that just try to stop it? Like just look at all the previous technologies and where like the Luddites or whatever were where those groups of people ended up fighting a new technology, or like the people that were hating on cars because they thought that like horses are just better, or like it never works, right? So I think that's the one belief, that technology always keeps improving, and once people truly understand that, like the only way to do that is to embrace it. That's the only path forward.
Yeah, but also I think an interesting thing too that I've been seeing right now is it's not like pessimist per se, but some people are of this belief now that we might plateau soon,
Oh
where
yeah,
we are
I've seen that
not
too.
exponential, right? And to me, like an interesting thing about this, I was thinking about the other day was like, what if the limit of intelligence is human intelligence? Right? We never asked ourselves this question. It's like, what if, like, it's almost like, you know, the speed of light is the constant in the universe.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the speed in the universe. What if the human intelligence is the highest form of intelligence? Like we can't prove that, right? And so,
Yeah.
and that's when it gets interesting, where it's like, oh wait, maybe we might plateau, but for my mind, and going back to what you were saying, it's always better to bet the opposite bet, where it's like, you know, there was this philosopher in the 18th century. His name was Pascal, which was one of my favorite philosophers. He was an atheist, but he had this bet
Pascal's
called,
wager.
yeah, like the God bet, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's always better to believe there is a paradise, because at least you get to act like a good person, right?
Yeah.
And I think like this applies here too. It's like, yeah, I mean, I could think that this plateau, I could think that it's not gonna get better, but why? I can bet it's gonna get better, and to me, like the other interesting thing about this thing that I think people don't talk enough too, it's like we create intelligence. So it's almost like intelligence and consciousness is not necessarily related. Like, right, we're getting to a point where like we have make intelligence out of rocks, and maybe consciousness is not like an inherent part of being intelligence. It might be something else that we don't know. It's the soul. It's the whatever you want to call it, right? And so it's very interesting. I think we also get into a point where the more we explore those tools, the more we get to the limits of what we could do, the more actually we're going to understand about ourselves. And I think that's also something that I tell people too when like they're afraid of talking to ChatGPT or like these things. And the things I always say, it's like, hey, think about this. This is the very first time in the history of humanity where to understand a technology, it's not about understanding a piece of tech necessarily or a piece of code. It's about understanding how to be human, right? Because if you know what it means to be human, if you know what it means to talk to humans, there's a high chance that you're going to be successful in the AI space too. And this is why I believe like this is truly the era for like the ideal people, the creative people, the designers, because those are the people that were always thinking with the best people interest in mind. And if you know how to be empathetic to people and you know how to speak to people, you're probably going to be very successful with AI. And at the same time, you know, you can always bet that it's going to get better.
Yeah, it's like so many people are like, why learn programming? Like programming's like going to be dead. But like as you said, it's about being a builder, like someone who has an idea and makes it happen, right? So I think like for me, this is how I rank how good of a programmer somebody is. It's not like whether they know all the syntax in 7 different languages or can write in assembly. It's like, what have you made? Like which products have you built that people actually like? And I don't even care if you had to like look up all the syntax online. Like if you actually made something, I think that's a good programmer.
I agree. And like even, you know, when I think of myself, like, you know, I never really touched Python until like I started building AI products. And, you know, like now Maestro won the code thing for Anthropic. And I'm like very proud of that, right? Because it's like that wasn't even my language, but it's something that I got better with AI. And I think, you know, that tells, right? It's like you can be successful. I think now we live in a time where you can be successful in anything you want if you just set your mind straight and use those tools to learn and like be better.
I absolutely agree. So super intelligence. You mentioned you think about it a lot. How can people prepare themselves for super intelligence or for the post AGI world?
Totally. So this is the way I see it, right? So a lot of people are scared that they're gonna lose their jobs, and trust me, there's gonna be a big part of that. But what I tell to people is take those skills that you are irreplaceable at, whatever that is. In any job you do, take the skills you're irreplaceable at, and start to being really good with those skills you're replaceable at using those tools. So basically, not let this tool do the things that you're replaceable at, just get even better, right? Like if you are a 10x JavaScript developer, become a 1000x JavaScript developer. If you are a 10x writer, becomes an under X writer, right? And so I think like if you have this mindset where it's like, okay, because like the thing is like and this might be like the controversial thing. I actually think you're gonna be replaced at the things you're not good at, right? And like that makes sense.
Why would you do them?
Right, right. You're gonna be replaced. So it's but if you're really good at something, if you're a great salesman, if you're a great writer, if you're a great doctor, and to me, like for example, a great doctor, it's somebody that it's like, it's empathetic, knows how to speak to people. It's not just about what he knows, but it's about the human side of things. Like yes, we might have like LLM's doctor in the future for like telemedicine and all this stuff, but like that sort of human touch, that's never gonna be replaced, right? And so it's like take the things you do well, be better at it yourself, and then just like exponentially be better with like AI. And I think like that's how you need to prepare yourself, because if AGI drops tomorrow, I know exactly what I will do with AGI. I will take everything that I'm good at, which is ideation and product and execution, and just 100x that. And if you are a copywriter, you're scared that AGI is gonna do all the copy for you. Not at all. Just you have a style that can be replaced. You have a tone that can be replaced. Just use AGI to, instead of creating 1 page of website every day, now you're doing 100, right? And that's the way I will approach this.
But like, having that mindset is so rare, because like that instantly what pops to mind is like the meta skills of like, I embrace new technology, I learn new things, I build stuff. Like those meta skills are like almost more important than the actual technical skills of like, being a good copywriter, being a salesman, programmer, whatever. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree, because that's like what you need now, right? Like what you need now, it's not like being extremely good at something, is to be good at something, but then understanding how to enhance it, right? And as you say, I think it takes a really special kind of person for that. Like one thing I always like to think back, it's like the Renaissance, right? Like I think there's such an interesting time. Like you have this time where like everybody was like an artist, everybody was a genius. Everybody, like I saw, there's this very fun tweet that is the to-do list of Leonardo da Vinci from like a day in the 14th century. And in this to-do list, there's things like ask the measurements of the sun to this person, map Milan so I can build the canals, ask some chemical process to some other person. I was like, oh my god, this guy would have loved like if he was born right now, right, what he could have done it, like what an amazing thing he could have done it, right? And I think like to be human is to really understand knowledge and embrace knowledge and get better at knowledge, right? And I think like there's never been a better time to be knowledgeable at something and to expand your horizon and to be better. And I think if we all do it, we can literally enter this new Renaissance era where we're all doing something that we are excited about. We're all doing something that we're proud about. We are not limited by money. I really believe that like if AGI is achieved correctly, like we can gonna enter one of the most prosperous era of our time. Granted, there's gonna be a part of the world that's probably not gonna happen for a long time, but I think that's just the nature of things. And we should be respectful of that, of course. But I believe that's gonna be the future of things.
I think to achieve that kind of a renaissance, we almost like need to switch the societal position to like entrepreneurship, like people experimenting. Because when I read the Walter Isaacson book about Da Vinci, it was like
I love them.
The times when he grew up and like how society thought of things. Like I think if he grew up now, he wouldn't be like Da Vinci, because like back then he was like encouraged to go outside to look at the butterfly, to explore the cave, and it was like just to experiment stuff. And now it's like everybody just go to the same school, just follow the same path, and it's only like you have to fight and like be lucky to get that random YouTube recommendation or to get that random person on Twitter to like kind of switch your thinking. It's like, oh, there is this second world of people who are building, experimenting, because like the mainstream society is like so limited. Just like follow the path, follow this and do this. Don't go off the path.
That's actually a beautiful example, and yeah, I read that book too, and it's also so interesting to see how like a lot of the reason why it was also successful, it was because it was neglected. Like it was
Yeah.
like it didn't have really a
He wasn't
family.
the
Like
main
it was,
son. Yeah.
yeah, it was an unwanted child, right? And I think there is a power in being by yourself and being a free thinker, and like all of those things. And yeah, you're right. Like people just like sometimes they try to follow a path, but now you can, yeah, like if we teach people that all of them can forge their own path and they don't have to be worried about like societal wardism, like all this kind of stuff. I think like everybody will be so much more happier, and the world will benefit because you will have more people building fun stuff and art and things that feeds our soul, yeah.
It's crazy to think that if Da Vinci was actually the firstborn son, the legitimate son, he would be sent to that. I think it was like some school or something for like
Yeah.
religion or whatever, and he wouldn't have that freedom to explore and be a polymath. So it's kind of crazy that just like being born as a second child and like not being wanted, created perhaps the greatest genius of all time.
I mean, and there's like so many examples in history, right? It's like Steve Jobs is like that too. Adopted. I mean, he had a very loving family, but I think like growing up as an adopted child, it puts something on you, right? It puts a stigma on you. And Musk is another great example. Horrible family situation. It's like the relationship with his father is like very interesting. So it's like, yeah, it's there's definitely a common denominator in having a bad childhood. I don't know what tells about people. Hopefully we can all be better at that. But yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, so I actually have to run in a bit. I have 2 questions, or I guess 3 questions about EverArt, Designer GPT, and Maestro.
Yeah.
So what is your main project out of these? Is it EverArt?
Yeah, so EverArt is my company that I found with my 2 best friends, and it's basically the culmination of all those thinkings that I explored in the past 2 years, and of course the things that we've been talking about. Because AI is like extremely powerful tool. They can do so much with it, but once again, as we discussed today, it's like really hard to use for some people, right? And especially when it comes to image generation, like if you go to DALL-E, Midjourney, all the sort of like text to image, the standard text to image generation tool, even if you're incredible at prompting, it's really hard that you get what you want. If you have like a specific style, like let's say you're like a photographer that does a very specific style, it's basically impossible to recreate this with other tools. And so EverArt solves that problem for artists, brands, corporation, where you come to my platform and it's super easy. You drag and drop 10 to 15 images of something that you want to train your model on, and we support model train on style, persona, and like object, like a product. And so you train a model on these 3 different things that you want, and then you basically have your own custom model, which one you feel more empowered to use because it has your data, so you can use the data that comes out of it because the model has changed so much that it's truly yours. And 2, it's much easier to use, right? Because you don't have to say complex things. For example, one thing that our customers are blown away with, it's like if you're training a model on there's this alcohol brand that is on our app, and they have this like beautiful photography that they posted on Instagram. They train a model on that, and now all they have to say it's like a glass on a table, and it's like boom. It's like because the model has such a good visual understanding of like your style, and I truly believe, and every company that we talk to, what they say that we have the best fine-tuned technology. We actually even Stability AI approached us, and they were like, guys, I don't know how you did it. It's like, and this is truly like, sleepless night, like going to sleep at 5 a.m. every night for months, training 1,000 model, get a feeling for what makes a difference in a good model and in a bad model. And in a way, like a company like EverArt shouldn't even exist because each model, it's like so complex and each model, it's its own case. But we basically come up with a formula that truly no one has at this point that you can apply to any type of fine tuning. It will just be perfect, or as close as it gets with today's technology. And that's also another thing that we think about. Like those image model, they're just as good as they are now. Stability 3 just dropped. It's amazing, and whatever the 4 and 5, and they're just gonna get better. And we've been seeing like a lot of success for our customer. We have, at this point, I think we have that they're like training like 20,000 models, something like that. It's just crazy, like 20,000 unique image models on the platform. And
I'm really sorry. I really have to run. I will link EverArt in the description, and I would love to do this again in a month or so if you're down.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this conversation so much, Pietro, but I have a football match. I really have to go.
Yeah, no worries. And yeah, this was super fun. And thanks for taking the time. Yeah.